The information and suggestions given in this podcast should not be considered as clinical or medical advice. Consult with a physician before implementing any information provided on this podcast. Metabolic Radio.
Makes me laugh.
Of course, we always start the podcast laughing.
That's awesome.
Oh man! So I think it's important that we tell our listeners the most foundational exercises that they need to do to see results, so that we can dispel.
This is part of a continuation off the last one too, because it's kind of the basic starting point in exercise too, based off of we talked more on nutritional stuff last time. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so the way I explain it to people, and this is obviously on a very basic level, is that the exercises I and you are probably going to recommend are the foundation for what most other exercises branch out from. Because the human body is biomechanically limited to what it can do. And even though there are exercises that do focus on movements that are separate from these are the best foundation, in our opinions, on where to start for fitness and functionality.
That and... We're actually doing it from a weightlifting perspective because
yes, that's correct,
and we will cover more in this specific podcast than just that because it needs to be over the whole course of this because we'll talk through this as we're doing.
So just so you guys are aware, Shane and I have come up with our own lists of exercises, and we're going to basically kind of present them. Of what we think are,
we'll discuss that.
Yeah, of what we think is the best handful of exercises you should learn to master before you really branch out too much into more advanced,
and some of these
elaborate workouts or exercises.
They're more foundational. But the thing that also on this is when I say my list and he says his list, they aren't even exercises I necessarily recommend you start with. I'm just going to say they're foundational.
That's a good point.
They're because a lot of them they don't necessarily need to be used, but they're something that I think they set the foundation and they're the best exercises probably overall for the.
Well, yeah, I mean
the movement is the best. If that makes sense.
If there are people out there that have a certain condition or a muscle deviation or something that they're not in a position to be able to do some of these exercises, that is definitely the potential. So just as clarification, your individual needs are going to vary.
Absolutely.
You might not be able to do some of these exercises right off the bat, but in an ideal world, you would use these exercises once you had established your fitness level, and it would help develop and maintain your foundation of proper form, biomechanics, strength, those types of things.
Well, and I'll clarify in my list, as we talk about it, I'm going to clarify where some of these I did when I was young and I don't even do them anymore. Mm-hmm. But they're shall we say, my exercises are bang for the buck. Is the reason why they're on my list. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Even so, elaborate on that. What do you mean by bang for the buck?
Well, let's go into the list and we'll start there.
Okay, so let's. So Shane's got his first exercise as a squat.
Yep.
Now, are we talking a barbell squat? Or are we talking a body weight squat?
Nope, bar-based squats. Now, granted, body weight squats again is something that would be part of this. Mm-hmm. Because I'm thinking more on weightlifting aspects. So squatting, the reason why squatting is because the biggest muscle set is in your legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To start with. So it actually causes your body's metabolism to wind up, if you will, and it actually causes you to kick out more testosterone, and it causes you to have a more Yeah, you get a bigger effect overall from squatting than you do any other exercise. Mm-hmm. That's why I put that on the top.
So, what about the concern that's pretty common?
You can't change your list.
I'm not going to change my list.
I'm just saying, dude.
My list is written down. It's right there.
I saw that, and I know what your
I
list
wrote my
is.
list first.
I know, and I saw your list. So I just want you to know you can't, as we talk, you can't modify your list.
Are we going to go through your whole list or back and forth?
No, we can go back and forth.
Okay, yeah. So,
just saying.
Just to clarify, though, for people who are concerned, we did cover weights versus cardio and some of the stigmas with that. But how about squats being bad for your back and knees?
Squats are actually really good for your knees if you do them right. If you bounce, see, when I was young, I bounced, and that's why I have knee problems. But
meaning you bounced in the movement.
Yeah, in the very bottom, you
did them really fast.
I did them fast, and I hit the bottom hard and came up.
Yeah.
So I bounced off the bottom, and
you used like that elasticity and slingshotted yourself back up.
Absolutely, and that did massive damage to my knees. But if it's done correctly, it's extremely good and it strengthens your knees.
Yeah. So no, I would agree actually. And I'm not changing my opinion. Squat is actually on my list too.
No,
but
I just want to.
I know that's a concern for people.
I'm talking. I don't want you to change your numbers. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, the order of priority. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then let's go with mine.
Yeah. Should we just finish mine? I guess we should finish mine.
Let's
first.
finish yours.
Yeah, and then you can.
You can go first.
Then you can modify your list.
I'm not going to modify it. I promise.
Yeah, that's what you say.
It's right there. No, okay. Maybe I'll modify it after this conversation.
That's it. Oh yeah. Okay.
But
fair. I just wanted.
That's if you have a compelling argument.
No, my next one's deadlifts.
Now we've got a lot of types of deadlifts. So what deadlifts?
These are just regular, everyday, normal. Grab the bar, pick it up deadlifts. They're not stiff legs. They're not Romanians. They're not Bulgarians. They're normal deadlifts. Mm-hmm. Just again because of the bang for the buck. It's the biggest movement, probably in lifting, is the deadlift, because you hit more muscle groups when you deadlift. Because you hit almost all of them. You don't hit them all. You don't hit your chest. You don't hit a few other ones, but you hit the majority of your muscles when you do a deadlift. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why I put that a second. It doesn't wrap up your body as much as a squat does metabolically, but it does a very similar reaction. Mm-hmm. That's why I put it as number 2. I put cleans as my next one. I was actually weighing a few different ones. It's an Olympic lift. I did cleans when I was young. I don't do it now. But it is a big movement as well. Every one of these, with the exception of probably my last one, and I only have that in there for a specific muscle hitting, to be honest. But cleans actually hit your body so well. It's because you're doing a full movement. You pick it up off the floor, you flip it all the way to your shoulders. In the movement, a lot of guys do almost a front squat as well, just to get the bar up in the right position. You don't have to, but cleans, they work a large majority of your upper body and a lot of your lower body as well. Bench press is, in my opinion, is necessary because it is it's a mover that you don't use a lot in life. You push a lot of your upper body when you bench press. It's more front of your body than is back of your body. But it hits a big majority of your arms, as well as your chest. And I threw pull-ups in the end because you really are missing kind of a key component with all those other exercises. And it's a full movement with a pull-up in how you do it. So you get a lot of your upper body as well. But it strikes more towards the lats, so you kind of offset your back.
So when you say a full movement, do you mean like it's full range of motion? Or?
Full range of motion. I can't get it because I actually have mobility issues in my shoulder, mm-hmm. So I can't even really extend as like I would like to be able to. But if you get the full extension all the way to the top, you actually have a movement that is that works your arms very well, in the opposite of the bench, almost exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's my 5.
Okay, so
and he did ask for 6. In fairness to Taylor, I did cheat and went with 5.
I did ask for 6. He gave me 5. I'm actually going to add in a 7th. So
go big.
So it's fine.
Go big.
So mine, kind of going down the list. The first one I put was deadlift, which we both agree upon being a standard deadlift. The reason I put that first was actually the same reason why Shane recommended his, but I put mine first because it does hit almost every single muscle group in the body.
Yep.
With, I would say, exception on chest and anterior delts,
that's
really.
That's pretty much what it hit.
Pretty much, like I've told a couple of my clients that
Almost
if there's
the entire
one,
posterior chain, actually.
one exercise to master, given that you can perform it and you don't have a limiting injury that needs to be taken into consideration or something like that, it's the deadlift, and it's practical. It uses maximum muscle groups. It's usually what people are most strong at. If in terms of actual volume of weight that someone can lift, if you can perfect your form on a deadlift, that's going to be your strongest lift.
It would be one of.
Yeah.
Body types.
Well, I mean, compare your squat to your deadlift.
Yeah, but again, it depends, because when you start talking guys that have shorter legs, longer arms, longer legs. You start throwing those categories in. Some guys can't deadlift for squat. I mean, they struggle.
They can't deadlift for squat.
That was a Freudian slip. But yeah, they really can't. They can't. They can squat potentially, depending on their body style, but they deadlift. It's harder for them.
I think you're right. I think there definitely would be.
So it depends.
Depending on the person, you would be dominant in one versus the other.
And I would agree with that.
I feel very confident in my squats, and I'm decent at deadlifts, but comparatively, I should work on my technique with deadlifts if I want it to be as comparable to my squat. Not necessarily in strength, but in how I effectively perform the technique.
Right, and I'm definitely stronger in my deadlift than I am my squat. It's not, it's not substantial, but then again, with my bad knees, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then my second one actually is a squat because of. The deadlift is really in front of it just because of the amount of muscle groups. Now, it was interesting actually what you said about squats releasing more testosterone. Is that true compared to the deadlift?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's scientifically, in studies, I should say, the studies have actually shown that there's a higher rate of testosterone released in squatting than in any other exercise.
Interesting. Is there a reasoning for that?
I think it's because of the nature of the movement.
Being an extension and a push versus a pull?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
More exertion.
Well, when you're deadlifting, you don't hit the front, which is the majority of your leg muscles are on the front.
Quads.
Yeah, you don't hit the quad as deep. You do hit it a little bit, but you hit more of the back, the hamstring, and your glutes. Substantially more in a deadlift than you do in a squat. Low squatting changes that a little bit, but because then you get more of your legs. But yeah, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. So
cool. Okay. So here's where it gets interesting, because me and Shane were reviewing our lists before we turned the mic on, and so he has an interesting point. I don't even know what he's going to say about this because we just said save it for the podcast. So I'm going to say next a rowing movement. Now, rowing movements where you can do it in a number of ways: bent over barbell, pulling the bar to your waist or to your torso, right. Depending on the angle. It can go to the rib cage or the chest or whatever. There's different ways to do it. Or there's a seated row version you can do with a multi-station where you grab the handle and the cable's in front of you. You sit upright and you pull the resistance towards your gut. Keeping proper posture in your back. It's a back pulling exercise. It'll hit your biceps, your back, lats, traps, and pinching those scapulas together. So the reason I say that is because, and I say that over the bench press, not because I think necessarily that it's like a superior exercise or that because I know that Shane might argue potentially the strength and application for bench versus a row, but because I
have a different view on that actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
you probably expect on that one.
But the reason is because almost every client I see, probably 9 out of 10 clients I see, have medial rotation or protraction of the shoulders.
You do have a point on that.
And so a bench is going to exacerbate that issue if not counteracted by multiple pulling movements to actually bring the shoulders down and back for proper posture.
Correct. But if you do a deadlift correctly, they would do that.
Yeah, potentially. But you got to think about, too, they're already in a protracted position.
No, you're right. That's a good point.
So they have to do a significant amount of pulling to get that to pull back before the bench kind of prevents them from retracting.
You got a good point on that. The only problem I see with that is I'm looking at a greater perspective. And you're looking at it from a reactionary to especially.
I'm looking at it from like an immediate assessment.
Absolutely. And let's take it from the United States perspective. So, because we don't live outside the United States, so we're going to do this from the United States view. Sitting over a keyboard.
Yeah.
That causes a lot of that reaction, because on a massage therapy perspective, you're going to look at how muscles have reacted over time, and it's going to rotate your arms in.
Yeah.
And that's because of the way they sit.
It's not even. It's that too, but it's driving. It's
too.
Cooking.
Absolutely.
It's work.
Absolutely.
Everything we do is in front.
Right. It's funny how we hold stress different. You go to different parts of the world. Like a lot of European countries, they hold it in their stress in a totally different place than we do, and because of that, they sit differently. We pull in a lot. We kind of entrap it all high in our shoulders and in our traps. And that causes a lot of that rotation you're talking about too. A lot of European countries will hold it in their low back, and it's completely different.
So what's the reasoning for that?
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, just when I was going through school, we studied that a little bit, and it's kind of interesting. I would say it's lifestyle. I'd say Europe has a lot more walking than we do, which is better for health reasons.
Do you know if they have more like standing desks or offices like that versus seated?
Don't know that. And granted, my schooling was years ago, so it may have changed a little bit. But I know that a lot of the stuff that happens in the United States is because of how we deal with things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you have a point on that.
Yeah.
I'll say this because I'll tell you the reasons why I would not put that directly on the list. Is because
on the list at all.
I would, if I did, I'd put it lower.
Okay.
I'd put it towards the bottom of the list. I'd put it down around pull-ups area because it's similar in nature. That's why I put pull-ups on there for that exact reason. Is because I wanted to hit certain things that it's not being hit as detailed as the other ones.
Yeah.
But the reason why I wouldn't add it to the list is it's not a foundational exercise. It's not one that really needs to be in there to hit the muscle groups correctly. You're isolating a lot when you do a lot of rows. That's the reason why I wouldn't put
it's
on
still compound, but it's not as much as a full body compound,
right,
like
a
squat
deadlift,
or
clean. If you want to start going into more stuff that I would add that we talked about outside of this, but I wouldn't put on my list, like clean and presses, because I would add that to it, to be honest. But it doesn't need to be on the list. That's the reason why I didn't add it. But yeah, it's not as big a movement. It doesn't hit as much and doesn't do as much. And like I said, I only added pull-ups for this exact reason of, if you need to hit certain things that I think you miss to an extent when you're doing the other exercises. But I think it's too much of an isolation. That's the only reason why I was like, when you were showing me your list. Do I think it's a good exercise? Absolutely. And if you're using it for something like you're talking about with rehab, that changes the whole nature of this, because that's rehab stuff. I don't see as foundational.
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't call it rehab, but I guess because we are fixing a postural deviation, then I guess it could fall into that. But
it's not perceived as rehab because people see rehab as injury.
Yeah.
When you look at it from a massage therapy standpoint, anything that you deal with that you're fix is corrective, which would be a rehab.
Okay,
that
makes sense. And I guess
that's the only reason why. Otherwise, it's a great exercise. I think cable rowing is different though than bent rowing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you do cable rows like it's set up,
the
way that people are doing is so different than the way they used to do it.
Yeah.
Cable rows, if you don't get that full extension in the front and pull back into it, you miss a lot.
And that's where I think the application for a bent over barbell row is more so there, because you get that low back erector spinae activation, and hamstrings actually start to light up at that point.
Absolutely.
And that's more practical, because when are you going to be bending over? When you're standing, you're going to be picking something up, and that's where you kind of get the transition to the practical, like deadlift or squat.
Yes.
But a bent over barbell row would be what I would definitely recommend first if the person can do it, versus a seated machine cable row or a machine row.
Well, and in fairness, like I said, dude, I see this as a what's the word I want to look for? These are foundational exercises because of what they do.
Yeah.
If I was looking at it for a different perspective, like what you were talking about, I would absolutely throw in things like bent rows. I would throw in things like, specific exercises for, like face pulls.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't even put on this list. There's no way I'd put anything close to this list because it's not required. If you take face pulls out completely and never do them, it's not really going to hurt you on a physique level at all. It's for health. But rowing, if you start talking about it for specific reasons, I get it.
Yeah.
I would. If I was setting up a program, I wouldn't do it based off of these. I would incorporate them, and I would use them for
Yeah.
specific purposes. But these are foundational just because of the nature of them for me.
Yeah, and I think it's foundational and on my list because that's what I see so frequently, so I've put it on there.
Right.
Now, if I worked with a different population that didn't have that, then yeah, I probably might not be on my list because I wouldn't be using it nearly as often.
Right.
Because if you think about the practical application of, like you're saying, a deadlift versus the practical application of a seated row, when are you going to do a seated row? You're not really going to do that in real life.
In fairness, when we get past your next one, because I will discuss it, since the reason why I want to cover my list so we could get through it all the way, and then we could discuss this better on your list.
Yeah, because most of what we have is actually the same.
Right, it's very similar in how it's set up.
Yeah,
but we'll talk about it on bench too. I want to hit that in deeper detail.
But I think I agree with you on application. Definitely not as good of an exercise. But for what I use it for, which is postural correction.
Right, correction.
Yeah, for
beautiful.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a total purpose in it.
Cool. Next, after that, I've got the barbell bench press, which you had as well. It's obviously a strength exercise. It's going to work a lot of anterior muscles. It works the chest, the anterior delt, the tricep. This is a pushing movement, so you're bringing the bar down, controlled with resistance to your chest, and then pushing away from you, which would, another similar exercise, but different in many ways, is a push-up. And I think it's practical. This would be more practical than a row. Is it better for rehabilitative?
Is it more practical, though? So here's my question, and this is what I was going to say. Do I think it's foundational? Absolutely. It is second to squatting, in my opinion, for overall effect.
And when you say foundational, let's define that. So, because
it's an exercise that has the most bang for the buck. It has more effect on the body.
Okay, you did say that.
Metabolically speaking.
Yes.
So
this is Metabolic Radio.
Wow, nice play in. So, but with the bench press, how often do you push like that in life? Never.
Well, when you're pushing yourself off the floor, when you're pushing something away from you.
I agreed.
I guess on a day-to-day basis, you're right.
If you start talking about it from a perspective of actual functionality, bench press is not a functional movement at all. Most people that roll and get up, they don't necessarily go into a bench or a push-up type position to get up. They get up off their one arm. It's not something that's used, and I think it's something that your body requires because it's actually a fairly good-sized muscle group.
Mm-hmm. So then. Okay, functionality of a
That's
row.
What I'm saying.
No.
When you throw it functionality, they're very similar.
I see your point.
They're very similar, but the bang for the buck, I just don't think the effect's the same. That's why I had a question on that.
Do you think a row is more practical?
It's more practical for sure. You pick up things, which is what a rowing movement is, way more often than you push something. There's very rare that you're going to be up behind a car and be pushing a car for any kind of distance. It's just you don't do pushing movements as often.
But when you're saying you pick something up, that's not. That's more of a deadlift.
But it's a pulling movement. What I'm saying is the row itself. If you want to go for actual practicality, a rowing movement, in truth, is more practical because you are picking up. Which is what a row is.
I prioritize the row above a bench, which you don't. Because of how it helps the average person, at least that I work with, which is the average population, for postural correction.
Absolutely.
And then you believe the bench is superior, not because of its application, but because its effect on the metabolism.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good to clarify. I like that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And that's the reason why my list is the way it is because of how it hits.
That's
now, granted, I would have put bench higher because technically speaking it is higher, but I put it lower because it hits less muscle groups.
So bench activates the metabolism better than a deadlift.
In my opinion, absolutely. Okay. And I've read things on it, but I can't quote them, so I'm not going to call it a study.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
interesting. Sure. Next, I have the pull-up. Now, obviously, a lot of people aren't going to be able to just start doing pull-ups. You're going to have to use some type of assistance, whether it's like a band or it's an assisted pull-up machine.
Right.
But the reason for that, this again. Technically, a compound movement is a multi-joint, multi-muscle group movement. An isolated exercise is a single-joint movement. Right. But a row, like we just talked about, and a pull-up they incorporate two major joint systems, the elbows and the shoulders. But it's not as compound as say a deadlift, which is almost entirely full body. You're not flexing and extending too many of those in a deadlift. You're a few major ones,
right.
But some of them are still engaged. And so that's where it's not going to be as big of the bang for buck, like Shane's talking about with rows and pull-ups. But pull-ups, again, they help with the postural correction. I use that as another pulling movement. Also, it's really women tend to be lower body centric or hip centric, and tend to have weaker upper bodies in proportion to their lower. So I tend to help.
There's a lot of reason for that. Mm-hmm. Women's anatomy is more grounded than men's.
Yes, yeah. Men stand up more.
It's not that they necessarily.
They're not as.
It's not that posteriorly they're higher. It's because the hip structure.
Their center of gravity.
Their center of the gravity. If you go into Chinese look on it, it drops where their actual center is lower. It's lower by far than men's.
Yeah,
and it keeps them substantially more grounded. That's one of the reasons why they slant towards wanting to do more leg movements when
because they're good at them,
because it's natural for them.
Yes, yeah.
And men have a tendency to go upper body for the exact same reason.
Yeah, because we're more core or chest, solar plexus.
Yes, because that's where they're high. That's like I said, when you start throwing the Chinese look into this as well, the chakras and everything set it up so that their bodies actually go higher, and it makes more sense because the actual center of their gravity is higher. So
yeah, but definitely just also for that corrective aspect, getting a variety of pulling movements in, hitting the back really well.
Well, that's the reason
and
why
strengthening upper body.
Right, that's the reason why I threw pull-ups in there as well, is because I feel like even though it's not truly what I'd call a foundational exercise, it's something that's missed when you take just the core foundational type exercises. You take them out and you still are missing. In my opinion, you're kind of lacking a lot in the back, and that's the reason why I added that in. That's why That's why I struggled a little bit with the row, but the concept behind it I agree with completely. That's why when you added that on there too, I was like, yeah, that's why I have pull-ups.
And if you're struggling with pull-ups, let's say you don't have an assistance machine or a rubber band. A big rubber band that helps you with the pull-ups enough. A chin-up to start is a little bit easier because it's easier to leverage.
Define them, because you.
So a pull-up, let's say you have a bar overhead or some type of machine where you can grab both hands overhead and you can hang suspended. A pull-up is going to be the grip facing away from your body. And you're going to typically have a wider hand placement, which is going to move your elbows out to the sides of your body further. So it's moving those arms into a position that's harder to leverage. When something is closer to the center line of your body, you're able to leverage it easier because you have better control over it. Yep. So a chin-up, what that does is it reverses the grip. It brings the elbows forward, and your hands now face towards you, gripping the reverse on the bar. They're closer together.
Usually.
I mean...
You can still go wide.
You could do wide.
It's harder to... Now, granted, on pull-ups, since we both threw this out there, pull-ups are you can do wide grip pull-ups, you can do close grip pull-ups, you can do neutral grip, which is actually not either direction. They're
Palms
actually
facing together.
They're facing together, correct. And then usually you have to have a peg to grab onto to do those. But there's different forms on it. Chin-ups... You can have a wide grip chin-up, which is harder, and it's actually harder on your joint. You can have a closer grip, which is more natural. You can do so. There's different locations and different placements.
Yeah.
Just to define that, because
the chin-up with the grip facing towards you, with the elbows brought forward, more of a narrow hand placement than a pull-up. That'll be easier for you to leverage. So if you're wanting to strengthen your upper body, strengthen your back, strengthen your arms and shoulders. Then and you're not able to do a full pull-up with that wider hand placement, then just start with chin-ups and transition to pull-ups. Afterwards,
it gives you more strength. Okay, so in a pull-up, you have your biceps are activated in a normal pull-up and in a chin-up. You have more activation in a pull-up. I mean, in a chin-up. Sorry, I got to say that right. In a chin-up than you do in a pull-up with your biceps.
Yes.
So you have more muscle. Aiding in the pull itself,
and you'll feel that.
You'll feel that for sure.
Change.
And that's partly why chin-up's easier to do. But if you still have a problem with it, understand that a rowing motion though it will make your back stronger, the odds are it will not make you stronger in a pull-up position because it's a totally different shoulder positioning itself.
From a rowing position, you're seated or bent over, and you're pulling. Well, actually, you could be inverted. Inverted rows would translate a little bit more to a pull up. Inverted meaning you're upside down, facing upward. You're supinated, facing up, and you're pulling yourself. It translates better to a pull up or chin up
because of the position.
Yeah,
or you could do pull downs too. But that's not on your list. So I
wouldn't
incorporate that.
I'm not going to advocate too many machine movements.
Well, just because it isolates it more.
But
it wouldn't be foundational. That's another thing. That's the thing about machine type stuff. This is not foundational stuff at all.
So the next exercise that I put on here, we did talk about this muscle group already in the bench press. So it's a similar movement, but there's a lot of different things going on. In a push-up, you're not under the resistance, pushing it away from you. You're actually in a prone position on the floor, typically, or on some type of leaning against something if you're doing an angled push-up. And but the movements are similar and the muscle groups are similar. Now, you need to prevent your hips from sagging. You need that lumbar flexion by activating your rectus abdominis or the ab muscles, so that you're not dropping your hips. And make sure that you're doing a full range of motion. And the reason I say push-ups is in this group is also, again, just kind of my same reasoning for if you fall down, you're getting up off the floor, to push something out away in front of you. We typically work with doing more things in front of us anyway.
Yeah.
It's a great core exercise too. It's isometrically engaging your core, which means that your trunk and the abs and the other
tying the actual thing that's based off of that exercise. That's ab based. Planks are really good strong builder of your abdominal strength.
If you can't do
endurance strength anyway.
Yeah, and this isn't on my list right now.
You're about to drop something I probably can't do.
But if you do if you're wanting to strengthen your core and yet you're feeling like weak or you're not able to do some more advanced core exercises, seriously, just holding a plank, actively engaging those abs, make sure you're not sagging the hips and extending your back, you're actually engaging your core and your trunk and your abdominals. That's a great exercise, just holding for time, just building some endurance and strength in that. I've actually started working with some people on doing active planks right now, which is the ones where you do purposefully actually drop the hips, go into an extended position, flex the abs, which is raising your hips up a little bit, raising your back up, and actually working on the contraction, shortening the distance from your rib cage to your pelvis.
Planks are a pretty good exercise. I wouldn't add them on to because core-based stuff, you get that when you're doing any of the main. If you squat correctly, it's not that you get enough, but you get a lot of abdominal reaction deadlifts you do because you have to tighten up to actually pick up the bar correctly, so forth and so on. So you actually get a lot of. That's why I didn't add anything. But other than that, I would actually put planks on this list.
Yeah. So what Shane's talking about is important to note that when you're doing a lot of these big lifts, the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press, even rowing and pull-ups especially, actually, your abs and other parts of your core are actually firing. You usually don't pay attention to them because you're worried about these other main groups you're focused on, but you're activated because they're there to support the spine and keep you from snapping yourself in half. So all of these actually are core training exercises in a sense. They're not the primary focus.
Right, they're not enough in my opinion. But that's why I'm saying I didn't put it on that list for that reason. Other than that, I would, like I said, that's why I'd add planks to this list, but I just don't see it's just not a foundational is why I did not. So.
And then my last one is an overhead press, and from a standing position, not a seated position. You're not really going to do that very often.
And I would agree with that one, actually.
Yeah, so standing military press where you have a barbell in front of you, starting at the shoulder level, collarbone in front of your face, pushing the bar up and then overhead, extending your arms overhead, keeping your trunk and your core engaged for sure. Because it's easy on that one. It's easy on that one to when you push, you extend back. Absolutely. And you actually. So a lot of people will put too much pressure in their low back and because they're not activating their core. They're focusing on pushing overhead. They're not focusing on engaging their core. So that's one. that works the core as well, but has some application when you're talking about pushing things overhead. You know, lifting your kids up onto your shoulders. You know what I mean? Like some dads will do. There's application there for it. Do you do it a whole lot? Probably not, but it's there.
But I would lean toward. That's why I was saying clean and press, which is similar. Is similar in that.
So you really had that in there. You just
but I just
combined
didn't
it
have. I just decreased down to cleans because you don't necessarily need to do the press to be involved. But yeah, like I said, that one in my opinion is foundational with those. Like I said, if you those who actually understand Olympic lifts, which are a lot harder to do, Olympic lifts, in my opinion, are the foundational ones.
Yeah,
true foundational ones are all. The
and
Olympic
lifts. there are some Olympic lifts that average regular people don't need to do.
And I agree with that. But that's why I'm saying that's in my eyes, those are the foundational because of the effect.
Yeah,
I look at foundational as effect.
So that's an interesting perspective that you bring up because we haven't really talked about that. We agree on foundational exercises, but we haven't said our reason why. And yours is different because you're talking about how it impacts the metabolism.
Absolutely.
Where I'm looking at it for what people need posturally a lot of the time.
And that's what I'm saying. I see what you're talking about as a program. What's the word I'm looking for? How to set up a program.
Periodization.
Not periodization. That's part of setting
a balanced program.
Setting up a balanced program to rectify problems.
Yeah.
Or to moving forward. When you're actually designing program design, probably is what I'm looking for. When you're designing it, you got to look for the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
For which I agree with on rows.
Yeah.
As an example. Because you're looking at fixing a problem. But see, for me, when I talk foundational, it would be for everybody. And so I say, how can you affect the metabolism? Because I'm not looking at a specific problem. When I'm starting to do program design, I look at problems.
Yeah.
Or things that need to be corrected or improved upon, and so forth and so on. And I look for very specific things that I to design it for program design. That's why I would say. That's why I questioned that and said I wouldn't do that for this. But we'll talk about it.
For your reason.
But exactly right. But yours for doing it for a purpose, absolutely rows should be in there for anybody who has any kind of rotation. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Face pulls. To be honest, face pulls you should have on your list because
I did face pulls with a client yesterday actually for that reason.
Well, they affect your rhomboids. So what's it going to do? It's going to cause your shoulders to rotate back. Mm-hmm. More so than even anything lat work. So if you want to do for that kind of reason, for me, I would be programming with face pulls. I wouldn't be programming as much with rolls for that. That would be more for rolls. I see as something that I do for aesthetics. Face pulls would be something that I would be using for correctional stuff or shoulder stuff. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's like I said. I wouldn't take rolls out with your reasoning. I just don't.
Do you think that face pulls would be superior though?
They would be superior for what you're looking at because they're strengthening the specific muscles that will be fighting against and understand when you have one muscle group fire, the opposite is its antagonist muscle is going to relax. It has to.
Yes.
On a physiological reaction. So because with what you're talking about especially from a massage therapy perspective, the first thing I look for with interior rotation in your shoulders, where it leans in, is the pec minor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that doing that, when you're doing face pulls, it's going to cause your pec minor to relax and to stretch, right, and to give because it has to. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, then you can't do that movement.
Yeah.
You're actually going to be fighting against yourself, and you'll just stop.
Yeah.
So that's why we do face pulls. Does it do it to an extent with rolls? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I just don't think it hits the exact specific muscles because it's lower. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, your range of motion is increased when you go into a face pull position.
Absolutely.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I do differently. We haven't talked face pulls, so I would you and I'd have to talk about it because I'd show you some stuff I do on it. But
cool. Okay. Any other exercises maybe that aren't on these lists, but that you think maybe they're not foundational in the terms that we've been talking about?
Well,
but
if you talk basic
some of the
exercises.
next things to branch out from. Personally, I would say lunges.
Lunges
are they
legs.
Isolated? Yeah. Are they? I mean,
not as much.
I mean, well, you've got.
I do step ups before I do lunges.
That's practical. Yeah.
I do step ups way before I do lunges, and you get the same effect.
Mm-hmm.
Step ups, in fact, to be honest, step ups, in my opinion, are substantially better for your joints. Mm-hmm. Lunges can be hard on your joints. Speaking from experience, my joints don't handle them well.
So explain to our listeners why step ups would be superior to a lunge.
Just because the movement itself is not putting your joint into a compromised position. When you go down in a lunge, your actual joint, the way it sits, it extends out differently, and it causes you to actually have more pressure on one joint.
You're talking about the knees?
Knees specifically, absolutely. Now, granted, that's where one of my physical ailments, if you will, is my knees. But lunges are really hard on them. Step ups.
Now you're talking about even if you're doing lunges with kind of a keeping the knee above the foot, not letting the knee go past the vertical line of where the toes are.
It's irrelevant.
Okay,
it's very hard on my knee. It's very hard on my knee. I
have
to put my hand on my knee to do a lunge correctly.
That's interesting to note, since you experience knee pain, and
yeah.
I don't. So
right.
So that's eye opening. No, that's good. But then now that you say that, step ups make a lot more sense. For
the angles are different.
The potential, but also just the potential scenarios that people would use.
Oh, for sure.
Use that
steps
in.
And stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But see, with step ups, because the angle is so much different, you're pushing down instead of stretching out. If that makes sense. When you do a lunge, you kind of stretch your leg out behind you or in front of you, depending on how you go. When you do a step up,
you're driving downward.
You're driving downward, and it causes more muscle recruitment, in my opinion. And you get the same exact effect as you do from a lunge because you're doing it into one leg.
And that would actually potentially help range of motion a little more naturally than having someone do a lunge.
Yep.
Because depending on the elevation of the box that you're or step that you're using.
And
that's really good.
And
to know.
you can check that range because certain ranges are going to be hard on certain people's joints when others won't. But yeah, I think step-ups are far superior to lunges. I wouldn't put lunges on this list because I just don't. I see more injury potential in lunge than I do in almost any other exercise you potentially could put on this list almost.
That's good to know.
Not that I think the lunges are bad. I just see them as.
I still use them.
Risky,
but
riskier.
For the reasons that you point out, I think that's interesting to me. I might play around with more box steps, but obviously I don't have any clients do a movement that. I'm always asking them, how do you feel? Are you in pain?
That's always
Do you
important.
feeling, like every day they come in, I ask them, how are you feeling today? What's sore? Is anything aching? Because I need to take care of them.
Okay, so we're talking basic design. So since we're talking basic design as well, on basic design, just because something hurts doesn't mean you should do it.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't?
Shouldn't
yes.
do it,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because I'll tell you...
I just want to be aware of where my clients are at that day so I know what's going on in their body.
Of course, and it depends on what the pain is, because a joint pain is substantially different than a muscle pain.
Absolutely.
So if you have a muscle pain, I say do the movement. As a matter of fact, if they have a muscle pain, the best way to do it is to do the exact exercise that they were doing.
Yeah, sometimes with lighter resistance.
When it
calls, in order to inspire more blood flow. This is a good thing to note so that people can understand that when you are sore, and we'll get into this with frequency of training and other types of training, but when you're sore, it's better for you to go into the gym, mimic the movement that caused you to be sore.
Absolutely.
Get blood flowing.
Yep.
Don't go to failure. Don't even necessarily go till it burns, but just get it moving and get it activated. And what you'll notice is that it's actually going to recover faster.
Well, lactic acid, people have this misnomer that it actually is a problem that is restricting your movement. Lactic acid is actually part of the help of the recovery. Mm-hmm. It's a massive boon to actually recovering. So if you can go in and get not true necessarily heavily lactic acid buildup, but if you can get some, it's actually going to help your recovery substantially.
Explain how that works.
You can do ATP almost better than I can.
Well, we'll talk about it with more our metabolism episode.
No, that's probably a good idea. I mean,
we'll save it for that.
Can I describe it? Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can hit it a lot even with nutritional stuff that would be able to be even better than I probably can. But yeah, it's like I said, that kind of stuff is stuff that when you're looking at basics especially. The thing that people don't understand is when they're in the basic stages is the most crucial side of training correctly, if that makes sense. You have less free space to make mistakes in basic stuff because you have more likelihood of injury.
Yeah, and I think it's just important that we
it's
go
not
over
as forgiving.
this.
It's not as forgiving, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's important that we are reviewing this list with people because I just see so many people trying crazy stuff in the gym. Like, they come back and they've seen something on YouTube or YouTube can be actually a great source for exercise form and things like that. But doing a push-up on a Bosu ball that's reversed so that the curved end is on the floor with their feet in a suspension strap, doing a push-up to a pike. Like, okay.
Oh, let's go crazier, dude. At a gym, I saw a guy on one of those Bosu balls doing a squat with 360 pounds.
With a bar.
With a bar.
Yeah.
Holy crap, insane.
I just want to see that thing pop.
Oh my gosh, it wasn't even that. I was seeing every potential injury that you can have imaginable. That's crazy.
So that's what we.
And he was someone who had experience. I thought he was nuts.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean,
you should know better, right?
Yeah. That's just a steam ball coming.
So, is there anything else you would add? Maybe not add to the list, but that's a great basic place to start.
Well, basic stuff. Okay, so here's the thing with basic exercises. I would start with body weight.
Absolutely.
I would 100% do none of this to start with someone that hasn't done exercises in the past.
Yeah, if you can't squat body weight or do a box step with body weight,
it's not even that.
Why would you add resistance?
I would agreed on that. Okay, I guess I shouldn't stop you before you got to that point. But that being said, the honest truth is, to get their body to act in a metabolic metabolic reaction, if you lay the foundation so that your body is already starting to gear up towards exercise, and you start to get them into a movement pattern, like we were talking about before with water and movement. If you can do that and you can get their body reacting to a stimulus that's outside of the norm, which a push-up is, or a pull-up, or a sit-up, or a plank, or, any of these kind of movements, any of those movements, and you start doing all this stuff outside, and you start moving around and start doing these things, that's where I would start to get their body so it is built up, so that it can start to take the actual punishment that comes from, because weightlifting isn't necessarily an easy reaction.
Yeah.
So and neither is body weight. I mean, any exercise is technically a thumping on the body.
It's a stress. That's why you get sore. That's why you're tight. That's why your body has to recover, because it's above your current homeostasis.
Right.
Your comfort zone.
Yes, and so if you can implement it in stages, then you have less risk of injury. You get more strength. You do body weight exercises,
and that's where the periodization and program design.
That's why periodization and program design is crucial. That's why having someone who knows what they're doing setting up a program, it will lay down a program that will make sense for the person. Now, if they want to lift weights, I'm not saying they shouldn't lift weights. I'm just saying a really good basic place to start is to start doing body weight stuff at home or in the park or wherever, and move into weights as you get more strength. And that's going to cut down injury likelihood. It's going to make it substantially better. And you're still going to get a metabolic reaction to it.
Yeah.
You can use that as a springboard like crazy well.
Yeah. And that definitely makes sense for beginners or people coming back into it after having been sedentary for a long time. There's going to be people that are going to adapt to that naturally. They're reestablishing their foundation will be a lot faster. Genetic potential, just their sense of proprioception and coordination. They might transition through a bodyweight phase very quickly, or may not even need to start there, depending on if they're assessed correctly for what they need. But then there are people that'll spend weeks and weeks in that type of phase. Right,
and they'll still get the reason isn't necessarily because I'm worried about it. Now, if they're doing it on their own, I'm worried about anything they do, because from point A to point B, you've got all this stuff in between that can mess with you. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're walking up and down stairs, you do it wrong, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So the honest to goodness truth, though, is if you try and stage it out and you do these things in the correct path, you can still get the gains and stuff you're looking for doing bodyweight exercise. I mean, the guys that do it without even lifting weights, they look amazingly good.
Best, in my opinion. And he does do some additional resistance exercises. Frank Medrano.
Absolutely.
If you guys want to see amazing human potential with
bodyweight exercise,
he
does a lot of weights
strength in general.
But yeah, he's amazing.
He can do push-ups with
shout out to him for
that one dude on his back. I can't remember his name. The CT Fletcher. So this guy Frank Medrano, I'm not sure his weight. He looks really light though, somewhere between like 135 and 155.
I would agree. I would think he's closer to 150s.
But he's ripped. But he has
pretty
much no body fat on him, and this guy can move his body in ways you wouldn't think possible.
Oh yeah,
and his strength with his body, with his strength to weight ratio is incredible.
Absolutely.
If you want to see amazing what you can do with just body weight and calisthenic exercises, go look up Frank Medrano on YouTube or Facebook.
Yep. Yeah. Amazingly developed well too. Actually, he's got a really good look on his physique. But he's a very good example of it. But yeah, that's where I would start. See, I would start with that. That's why I was saying I'd bring that up now, because is that technically speaking foundational stuff? No. If you can't do squats, do wall squats. Sit against the wall and hold those. Yeah, there's a whole stack of exercises you can do. You can do a rowing type thing, laying under a table if you can get a hold of it and it's safe.
Yeah,
you can do a rowing movement there. And then building other stuff. So
yeah, I think the last little point I want to make is, in terms, since we're talking foundational, is before you go into these bigger movements with resistance or attempting similar movements with body weight. I mean, you'll have to do it with body weight, but establishing your effective range of motion. You need to know what range of motion you can work within, from the starting point of the exercise to where your mid or ending point is with where you're currently at in your fitness level, and knowing where that is, knowing if your form is good or bad. So that'll tell you what you need to work on. I mean, you can't do a squat. Like, I know people who, when we do proper squat form, they can't reach their hips out for a chair, because their
hip flexors are probably too tight.
Yeah, their hip flexors are too tight, or they're just their body, they don't do those movements, so they lose the range of motion, they lose the flexibility. And that's, if you want to prevent injury, even with these foundational exercises like we're talking about that you should focus on, you need to establish a healthy range of motion with good form, with then body weight, and then apply resistance.
Well, and I'll throw in one other crucial thing really quick too, that gives a sound reason why you should train with a trainer directly. You need to find someone, and we were going to cover this earlier than we have, but talking about getting a trainer. But the honest truth is if you can find the right trainer, they're going to help you through the movement so you don't get hurt. And
that I think
that's crucial.
Should be key. If you go to a trainer and their goal is to kick your butt, you're with the wrong trainer.
Absolutely. And I don't care what style of training it is. I don't care if it's CrossFit. I'm not saying I think CrossFit's bad or good.
I don't care what cert they have, or if they have a degree or a PhD.
I don't care if it's a PhD. Obviously we're not poking at anybody with any of this, but the honest truth is it doesn't matter who they are. If they're trying to beat you up and not exercise you into it and make it so that you're not dying, because dying is not how you get in better shape. Dying is how you stop being in good shape, and that's how you get injured. And so when you're doing a basic plan setup, you don't want to kill the person in front of you. You want them to come out of it and improve.
Yeah.
And that is the crucial key to all of this that is missed by a lot of people when they're training people. And so, we could extend this extremely by going into what I'm starting right now, because I'm starting the pebble rolling. But I'll throw a little teaser to a future podcast. But that's why when you go in to pick a trainer, you've got to find one that actually cares and is looking at you as long haul, not for the short term, because short term trainers are terrible. Mm-hmm. A short term trainer is going to get you in the wrong position. A long term trainer is going to get you, even if you don't stay training with them, which is a mistake. If you can find a good long term trainer, you should stay with them forever, because there's added benefits for having a trainer. I can give you other people you can do it with if you can find somebody who's really good as a training partner. But finding a really good training partner is extremely tough.
Yeah,
and it's a lot easier to find a good trainer than it is to find a good training partner. But they're out there, and if you can find a good training partner, you don't need a good trainer, because they can do it just as well. But that's another story completely.
If you've got enough education,
knowledge.
Yeah,
knowledge, right? And education and knowledge being the same thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be books or school.
Mm-hmm. Well, never mind. Well, I was going to go off on another tangent.
Yeah, we could tangent this forever.
So, actually, just to add one little teaser in before we sign off, like Shane was kind of alluding to, we are going to do a future episode about how to find the right trainer for you, things to look for, certifications to look for, experience, what to ask, what prices to expect to pay. All of that is going to be coming to you. And we're actually going to write up a guide for you that you'll be able to get for free, because we want you to be educated if you're considering working with a trainer and you know that you can make it happen, you should do it. You should invest in a trainer as long as you are following some of the guidelines that we're going to give you. So just hang tight for that guide that is on its way, with a full episode talking about what to look for and what not to look for in a trainer.
Right.
Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, go on facebook.com, log into your account, go to the search bar and type in Metabolic Radio Private Forum. We will add you for free. We will be closing that group eventually. And we basically are going to answer any questions you have. You'll have us at your disposal for essentially free training and free advice. So we'll talk to you soon.
Deuces.
Thank you for listening to Metabolic Radio. Check out our fitness guides at metabolicradio.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Metabolic Radio, and follow us on Instagram at Metabolic Radio, at the Metabolic Seahorse, and at the Metabolic Panda. Metabolic Radio.